Well, howdy. Excuse me, I was just over there playing with trains. I hope you guys don't mind. I hope you understand. I figured if anybody would understand, it would be you guys. How is everyone doing tonight out there? Out there in the world? So nice to see so many familiar faces, or names anyway, handles. I was just over there playing with trains and running my new engine. It's a Bachmann outside frame 440. This is number 15. Here it comes right now. Give it a little blast of the whistle. Coming along right behind me there. Everybody's doing good tonight. Just let's look, see who all is here. Mike's here, Lynn's here, Donald's here, Daniel, Jeff, the Otter Creek and Rio Grande. Great name, by the way, for a railroad. Ryan Gallagher, John Clark, Gerald Stewart, Norman Rowe. Good evening, everyone, from Thunder Mesa Studio in beautiful uptown Jerome, Arizona, the cosmopolitan capital of central Arizona, the thriving metropolis of Jerome. Funny thing is, it actually was a thriving metropolis at one time. At one time, it was the biggest city in Arizona. Then it became a ghost town. That's what happens when the copper played out. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoy the content. I'm glad you made it for tonight's live stream, where the topic of the day is backdrops. We're going to talk about that a little bit. That was suggested by someone on Facebook, and I thought, you know what? That's a really good idea. Let's talk about that. Oh, but first, I got to change hats. You know, I can't be wearing the same hat all the time. I'll be right back. Talk amongst yourselves. There we go. I went from one Mickey Mouse hat to another. Got this one on my last visit to Walt Disney's Original Magic Kingdom in Anaheim, California. It's great to see you all here tonight. Sean Williams. Good evening. Nice to see you. You're also not here. Good. That's what we say in Jerome. We're all here because we're not all there. That's like the town motto. I'm going to mute the locomotive back here because even though the sound is fantastic, it makes it hard to think and concentrate. So, shh. There we go. And it'll continue to go around, and hopefully we won't have a derailment like we had on one of the previous live streams, but that's just extra added excitement. I set up here today with, a good view of the backdrop behind me, though the lighting is a little funky in the video, I have to admit. That's not the way it looks in person. The backdrop behind me on the Thunder Mesa layout, obviously it's painted. Can you borrow the mute button for your kids? Hi, Jim. Nice to see you here tonight. Glad you could make it. Obviously, I have a painted backdrop. I have a background in the arts and illustration and design. So doing a big painted backdrop for the layout was something I always wanted to do. And I understand for a lot of people that it's a very intimidating prospect. It was intimidating for me for a long time. For the first almost half of the life of this railroad, it didn't have a backdrop. If you look back on the earlier blog posts from way back when, some of the earlier videos here on YouTube, You see, there's no backdrop in the original location. I just never got around to it. I built the layout. I started building it, but well, the reason was because the layout was not really built for that location. It wasn't supposed to stay there, so I wasn't going to have a backdrop. But then I just started expanding it, and never got around to actually doing a backdrop until I moved it up here to the studio in Jerome. And that's not a practice I recommend. I recommend planning the backdrop and is from the very beginning, and if at all possible, installing it and painting it, at least most of it, before you even get the bench work done. And there's many reasons for that. I'm going to go off for a minute on this stuff, and then we can do questions and stuff like that. But you guys can tell me what your preferences are. Yeah, you really want to do the backdrop first, because obviously it's a lot easier to reach, and that's one reason. That's a real practical reason. Another reason is to match the colors. Now, say you don't have an art background and you're just going to do a photo backdrop from one of these people that provide those, and you're going to get some stitched together photos. If you put that up, the light is going funky on me. That's weird. If you put that backdrop up after you've built your layout and scenery, how are you going to match the colors? Right? So you want to try and match the colors in your backdrop when you build your scenery. So that's one of the reasons you want to do it first. If you paint the backdrop like I did, you have a little bit more flexibility. You can build the scenery and then get the paint colors to match on the backdrop, and that's what I did here. But that's that's just one of the many considerations. There's no big secret to backdrop painting. It's a skill like anything else. You can learn how to do it. If you want to paint your own backdrop, here's what I recommend. I highly recommend you take a class, if you don't have any art training at all, to take a class like at the local community college in acrylic painting. Almost every local community college offers a class like that, acrylic landscape painting. And you will learn everything you need to know to paint a backdrop. There's really not a lot of mystery to it. There's just a few simple rules. Obviously match the colors to your scenery. Another thing is atmospheric perspective. Use atmospheric perspective rather than mathematical perspective. And I'll walk you over there in a minute. I'll show you what I'm talking about with atmospheric perspective. It's basically, this is what I want to say, it's basically a giant landscape painting. That's what it is. But instead of one focal point or center of interest, like say a barn, or if you're Bob Ross, mountain, instead of one center of interest, you have many different focal points or centers of interest, which are just there to complement the foreground scenery. They're not meant to detract from it at all. So, that's a skill, is being to learn to be, knowing where to place those. And I'll show you some examples here in a second. The other thing is, and I see this all the time, this is a really common mistake that I see on backdrop painting all the time. And I've seen it on some photo backdrops too, where they stitch together stuff in Photoshop to make a big backdrop, but the light doesn't match. And what you have to do is you have to pick one light direction. Where is the sun? Where, there's only one sun. We're not on Tatooine. There's only one sun, so you got to pick where that light source is coming from, and then the lighter side of all the painted scenery, clouds, everything else is on that side where the sun is, and the shadow side is on the opposite side. And I can't tell you how many backdrops I've seen where it's like, okay, right here on this mountain, the sun is hitting it this way, and then, 3 feet over this way, the sun is coming from the other direction. And even if you're not an artist, everyone's been outside. I hope. So, what you should know. The human brain is going to go, you may not be able to put if you're not an artist, you may not be able to put your finger on it. Like, something's wrong here. But everyone's going to be able to is going to go, this is just not, there's something off. And so pick a consistent light source. That's what I'll say. So now I'm going to walk you over here and show you a couple of examples of what I was just talking about, and then we'll get into the discussion here. I want to flip you around. Hang on. We're going to flip around. There we go. Hey, there's my workbench. We're on the gimbal cam tonight, so should be smooth panning as we go around here. I'm going to take you over here into the Horse Thief Canyon area. Now, this is what I mean by atmospheric perspective. You see how the cliffs fade off into the distance and get more and more kind of light and blend in more with the sky until they basically disappear. That's atmospheric perspective, and it's very simple to achieve. You just mix more of your sky coloring, your blue, with your scenery color for each layer as you go back. And the great thing about atmospheric perspective, I'll show you as I move around here, it works from every angle. Okay? Now, if I was to do that same kind of thing using mathematical perspective, where everything kind of just goes off to a vanishing point. And this is often a problem with photo backdrops. They can't help but have mathematical perspective. Say you've got a road, or in this case, a canyon going off into the distance. It has a fixed vanishing point. And I can't really demonstrate it very well because this doesn't have that, but maybe you'll get the idea. So if you move this way, everything kind of scrunches over like this. And if you move this way, everything kind of scrunches over like that. And all of a sudden, the illusion is lost. So it only works from the one angle. It only works from the perspective of where that vanishing point is seen from. So that's why you want to avoid something like mathematical perspective and stick to atmospheric perspective, which is basically a cheat, just to make things look like they're further away. The other thing I want to demonstrate right here in this spot is a focal point. This is a focal point on the layout, and here, let's walk you around over here. So is this mountain over here. That's Rainbow Mountain. We'll get her around over here. Hang on. So that focal point back there also works from right here. You see how that lines up like that? So it looks like, from here, it looks like all one scene going off into the infinite distance. And that's the idea. That's why that focal point is there. The big storm cloud up over the mountain, another focal point. That's something that's visible from everywhere on the layout. So that's just, here's some more atmospheric perspective over here in the future engine yard. The cliffs just kind of vanish off into the distance. And that's just paint. And if you look really closely at how the things are painted here, this is all done with latex and acrylic paint. It's very much like a paint by numbers. You see, if you get close, I'll zoom in here and close on this. Stuff just kind of breaks up into blocks and blobs of color. But when you get back, it all comes together, hopefully. Hopefully it comes together into something that looks like scenery. Hey, look, yes, Mike, there's a turntable and tracks, and look, there's a couple of 4/4 rows there, some porters, couple of tenders. Yeah, there's going to be a little engine service yard over here, little turntable. Let's cruise through Thunder Mesa. Yeah, it would be awesome if I rounded the corners, put in what are known as coved corners. It's a pretty good illusion, though, even with the squared off corners there. The reason I didn't do that was purely practical, and that's because I rent this space. So I really couldn't do a lot of modifications to the building like that. I could put up square partitions, but if I was going to do coved corners, I'd want to do that with drywall and everything. So I really couldn't do that in a rented space, unfortunately. If I ever move the layout to some place where I can do that, I probably will have to repaint the backdrop anyway. That will be an adventure. But then I would definitely add coved corners. I'd also like it to go all the way up to the ceiling. You know? How do you find the corners if they're rounded? That's an excellent question. Excellent. Another focal point up here behind Calico Mountain. That big cloud is just to make it look fun and dramatic and like it's a beautiful day. That's what that's for. But anyway, that's kind of my take on painted backdrops. I really don't have much of an opinion. This might surprise you. Let me put this down here. One way or the other on, what's better, is a painted backdrop better? Is a photo backdrop better? I think that's for, here, okay. One of these days I'm going to do a super cut of me just trying to adjust this gimbal and then just grabbing it with my hand. Which is better? And the answer to the question is, which is better for you? Which is better for your needs? Not necessarily, and your needs are going to be different than mine. If you're modeling the Colorado Rockies, doing a Denver and Rio Grande Southern, Colorado Southern, something like that, there are tons of great resources available. There's backdrops available that you can buy and roll out and have ready to go. In my case, that's what it is. I lean back, the light changes. The light is my camera is having a hard time adjusting to the light. In my case, there were no great backdrops of the American Southwest. I could have made one out of photos, but I would much rather paint it because I feel it's going to look much more like my scenery if I paint it. So it looks like it's all of one piece and all together. So that's just my personal preference. What do you guys prefer? Some people prefer no backdrop at all. Some people prefer just a neutral color, like a beige or like a gray. And you can get away with that in some locations. Say you're modeling, West Virginia, and so you just paint the walls kind of a blue-gray, and then you've got, it's a foggy day, and then you can put a lot of fall color on the hills, and it would look really amazing. That's kind of what I did with Gruesome Gulch over here. I created that little alcove, which I've now taken down, and all the walls were painted just sort of a blue-gray to just kind of fade into the background, to be neutral and fade away. So, someone mentioned a black background, which would be interesting. I could see somebody like a James Powell or something doing a green backdrop, like a green screen, and then you could project. You could drop in any kind of scenery you wanted behind it, but it would only work on video. It wouldn't work in real life. There's a lot of comments and questions going on here. I want to catch up for a minute. I want to go back here and see what's going on. Greg Goldman, do you use masonite to make the backdrops? Yes. I used it's 1/8 of an inch thick backdrop framed up. Fortunately, I had a little bit of experience building sets from college theater and high school theater, for that matter, building flats. And that's basically what those are. They're built just like flats, but instead of canvas, they've got masonite on them. The back wall is drywall. That's actually the wall of the building. I just painted it right on there because I wanted to take advantage of the high ceiling because I've got the tall scenery here with the buttes. So I wanted that big blue sky behind it. Let's see. Bob from Typhoon Lagoon Railway says, backdrop, never had a need for them. Well, you know, when your layout is this big, how much do you need a backdrop? Otter Creek and Rio Grande, I prefer a painted backdrop if they are done well. Yes. Yes and yes, I agree. I prefer them done well. I would rather see a well-done painted backdrop than a perfect photo backdrop. The problem with photo backdrops is often the biggest problem I see is that they sometimes just don't match either the color or the character of the modeling, if that makes sense. And I got nothing against them. I mean, some of them just look fantastic. What I kind of wish they would do, and maybe you could, if you're buying a photo backdrop for someone, you can ask them to do this, is to run it through, you could run it through like a Photoshop filter to get like a kind of a painterly look to the photo backdrop. That's something I've actually done when I did, I don't know if any of you guys remember, I had the Grizzly Peak backdrop that used to be on this wall over here, which is no longer there because I opened up the studio and got rid of all that stuff. But I had the Grizzly Peak on this side, and that's actually a photo backdrop. That's not a painting. And I created the graphic, I created it in Adobe Photoshop and ran it through several filters to make it look painterly. And that's actually something that would work well with photo backdrops for model railroads because it kind of diffuses them. You remember how I was showing you like the blocks of color? That's what it turns it into. It turns it into just blocks of color that are more impressionistic and less in your face than a photo backdrop is. That's the other problem. If they're too sharp and too in focus, and you don't have the depth, if that makes sense, because things that are far away are more out of focus. And the older you get, the more true that is. I'm glad I'm here to laugh at my own jokes. Let's see. Ryan Gallagher, the current layout was inherited from others and partially my work, having to consolidate the backgrounds. That would be a challenge to, have backdrops created by different individuals and different techniques and try to make them to mesh together and match. That's a challenge that I don't envy you. That would be tough. Yeah, Ian says black. So Ian, you're a fan of the black backdrop, like for a stage setting. I could see that for certain things. I could see it for certain things. Like if I was going to do like a sci-fi layout, like Jason does, some Star Wars or Star Trek, I could see having a black, just a flat black, and you can project stars on it. See, there I go again. Then it's not flat black anymore. But yeah, like a theatrical space. It's just like a black box so that the modeling stands out. I really like that for model photography. You know what I mean? Like a beautiful model, black box behind it, so all you see is the model well lit, well photographed. But as a diorama or display or themed environment, to coin a phrase, yeah, I don't prefer it for that. But for just like photography, yeah, that's awesome. Let's see. Black stage background. Yeah, it would be easy to paint. I'll give you that. DK Austin 98. There's a layout on YouTube where the H where the whole layout is shades of gray. The owner says there was no color photos in that area, so the whole thing's in black and white. I like it. Ah, that's hilarious. Let's see. Hey, Ian says, lovely Australian uses black only the tracks and close scenery, and the rest is black. Okay. Or the perspective. Right. Human City Junction. Photo backdrops are usually too sharp. They usually need to be softer, in my opinion. Exactly. That's what I was talking about with the filters. Throw some filters on there. Make them more painterly. Just kind of so they fade back a little bit. Yeah, they're a little too sharp. If you can see all the needles on the pine trees, it's too sharp. It should just be blobs of color, in my opinion. Painterly, yes. Yes, softer focus works better, blah, blah. Magic Mitch Arts Show. This is a great question. How do you keep dust and cats off of the Thunder Mesa layout? Well, cats aren't a big problem because this is my studio and there are no cats in here. I love cats. I used to have a great cat named Lucky who was half Persian and half Maine Coon. So he was like this big and super hairy. And everywhere he went, he left drifts of hair. And he was fat and lazy, and I loved him. He was a great cat. And the best thing about him is that he was the perfect model railroader's cat because he didn't jump up on stuff. He wouldn't like jump up on tables like most cats do. He was just like, it's too much trouble. I don't want to go up there. You know, a chair was about as high as he would go. So he wouldn't get up on here. But I'm getting off on a tangent. Yeah, no, we had a studio cat here that lived at the Jerome Arts Center. Unfortunately, very sadly, Mr. Bendley, Lord Bendley, we called him, got hit by a car and is no longer with us. We have a little memorial to him out in the hall. If you're ever in the neighborhood, check by it. But he always wanted to come in here, but I just didn't let him in. Dust, however, is another matter. I don't keep dust off the layout. Dust has its way. This is a 101-year-old building, so you can imagine. And we're right next to the highway here, so, do the math. Yeah, there's dust. I don't keep dust off. I just dust the structures occasionally. I vacuum the track. I have those cans of compressed air go around, blow the dust off of stuff. But sometimes, Jim, who's here just about every month for our open studios, he's our chat moderator here tonight, he'll tell you, the dust builds up. I try to clean it off for photos, but it does. Things get dusty. It's a constant battle, so I don't keep it off. I just have to keep cleaning it off. Let's see. Steve MD77, use flats and trees to add depth to the backdrop. Yes, you can do that. Layered flats. I'm actually going to do something like that over in Rainbow Ridge eventually. I don't know if y'all saw the video I did on the saloon recently, the Pat Casey's Last Chance Saloon, which is not a flat per se, but it's a shallow relief building. It's only about 1 3/4, 2 inches deep. Behind that, there's actually going to be flats, but they're going to be 3D. They're going to be in relief of another row of buildings up on the hillside. And I haven't modeled that yet, but I've left about an inch between those buildings and the backdrop for that. And the cool thing about it, I haven't told anybody about it. I've only told a couple of people, I think, about this plan. So they're going to be in forced perspective. They'll probably be around HO scale, so they'll look further away, but they'll be separated from the backdrop. So there'll be another layer of scenery there. So you'll have the buildings you see there now, this layer of flats behind it, and then the backdrop behind that. And they're all going to be lit too. They'll all have lights in the building, in the windows and stuff. So it's going to look pretty cool, I think. I just have to figure out all the ins and outs of how to do it. But yeah, I've seen that done. Layers of trees, and the trees get smaller as you go back and stuff like that. There's all kinds of tricks like that to not only add depth to the scene, but hide the transition. That's another topic. Hiding the transition between this modeled scenery and the backdrop. So on here, I don't try to hide it. I just try to match the color. So it looks like it just continues on forever into the great American Southwest. Let's see. Liners of our time ask, would you say it's realistic for an 040 Porter to be able to pull 3 log cars? Mine does it fine, but for some reason does not look realistic. How long are the log cars? Are they disconnects, or are they like big skeleton log cars? Porters, you know, the Bachmann Porters I assume you're talking about, those are small engines. I can't remember off the top of my head how many tons they were. Somebody I'm sure will chime in and tell you how many tons those Porters are. There's a Porter handbook floating around out there by the H.K. Porter Company, which has a catalog, actually. And thank you. Welcome, Excursion Special Member. Thank you for coming out. Thanks for joining up. You can look in there and see prototypically what their tractive effort would be, how much they could actually pull. This is my roundabout way of saying I don't really know the answer to that question. It would depend on how long the log cars are, and you know what kind of trees they were, and so forth, and so on and so forth. You know, back of the envelope, just spitball and say, yeah, probably pull 3, but not up a steep grade. That's why they invented Shays and Heislers and Climax engines was for that job. You know, Porters were usually used. The Porters that we see here, that we all love because they're so adorable, they're so cute. You know, they're like the Pokemon of steam locomotives. They're just adorable. They're like Pikachu. You know. The reason that's why we like them. But they were construction engines. They were used in dam construction, road construction, stuff like that, hauling stuff, building stuff for building railroads and things like that. That's what they were mainly used. Industrial use, and some mining. But yeah, you know, they're used to move the ore from the mine onto the spur and into the bin where it gets loaded onto the big train, which takes all the long ore cars down to the mill. So it's So the answer to the question is, how realistic do you want to be, or do you just want to have fun? Paul Ullum asks, did you see that comment I made about the Pirates of the Caribbean at Davy Jones with the smoke statement? I may have seen it and forgotten. It's not ringing any bells. Repeat it. Ask me again, and I will try and answer. Once again, asks, have you ever given thought to a projected background or moving clouds, whether it's Jimmy Powell was here earlier in the year, and or was it late last year? I can't remember. And we talked a lot about that, using digital projection technology, projection mapping, to have moving clouds or birds or storms or all that kinds. All of that is possible. I would have to build a platform up here, basically up where the track lighting is, to support that infrastructure for something like that. It's not impossible, and it's not outside the realm of possibility. That means the same thing. It's not going to happen today, but I already have a projected fireworks show, which uses the same technology, and the moon, the full moon. When they go to night mode, there's the full moon comes out, and there's stars, and there's shooting stars and stuff like that, which are projected on the backdrop. And that's the other thing. I need to find a new home for those projectors, because once I took the walls down up here, they got rid of the home for those. So I have to figure out new placement, and I'm probably going to replace the old projectors, which are like this big, with the new smaller ones like I used in the Gruesome Gulch layout. And those will be easier to hide. So yeah, that is absolutely a thing. You can use projected images on the backdrop. You could just paint it flat blue and project clouds all day long, moving along, you know, slowly drifting. Storm comes in, thunder, lightning. You can make a whole show out of it. It's all depends on how involved and elaborate you want to get. Joshua K. Reinhardt says, Pixel Depot showed in one of his videos how to dull the photo background. Yeah. Magic Mitch Archer, your cat is half Maine Coon, so is Lucky, until his luck ran out, sadly. Yeah, he was half Maine Coon. Great cat. Huge, lovable. Love that cat. Glenn, let me see if I can pronounce your last name without murdering it. Hasdek? Hope I got that right. Dust is just natural weathering. Absolutely. Most dust is dead human skin. Isn't that gross? Jim says, dust builds up, so do spider webs. If legally, they are to scale. Not O scale, but some scale. Yeah, we have little teeny spiders that live here too and build webs between the cactus and the buttes and stuff like that. And but they're very small. They're like scale tarantulas. Tweetsy Railroader, howdy Dave. I wanted to ask, how's Thunder Mesa #2 coming along? Last time we saw it in a video, we saw the completed tender, and I'm wondering about its current progress. You have seen its completed progress. Earlier in this live stream, I did a little walk around, I did a little walkabout. I went over by the engine service area, and the tender is sitting right over there. The rest of it is still in a box. I have a beautiful 3D printed shell from the Cumberland shops. It's going to turn it into a belle of the 1880s. It's going to be beautiful, Russian iron, boiler, brass, all that stuff. That is a project for later this year. It's on the list. It's on the list for 2023. I'm going to get to it. Jason Lay asked me, can you talk about how to layer the cloud sizes with perspective? I can draw you a picture because that's what I do. I did a little tutorial on this. I did a really quick thing when I was doing the Calico. If you look up the Calico series, Calico Mountain build, when I did the backdrop, I showed you in that a quick and dirty tutorial on how I paint the clouds. But let me show you. Okay, I'll try and draw here so you can see. Here's the horizon, right there. That's the line. That's the horizon. I'm going to draw some. Here's the mountains, buttes, mesas, whatever. Down here, closest to the horizon, you're going to have kind of some thin or smaller wispy clouds. Basically, you're creating the illusion that the sky is arcing over you, just like it does in reality. So as the sky arcs over you, the clouds get bigger because they're closer to you. So the closer the clouds are to you, the bigger they are. So just do a real quick, there's that. And then the next layer of cloud, well, let me start with the one in the front because that'll be easier. And these are just typical, what I call Andy's room clouds from like Toy Story. So there's a big one, and you got to remember, it's arcing over you, so you're going to be able to see the bottom of the cloud, right? And that's going to be darker because the sun is hitting up here. Okay, so the bottom is going to be darker. That's going to give you the illusion of 3 dimensions right there. And then you put a smaller one, like so. I don't know if you guys can see this, but, and do the same thing. And a little bit less of the bottom of that cloud is going to show. You see? So then there's another one, maybe over here. So that's like, so a little bit less of that's going to show, and then you're going to work your way back towards the backdrop to the background, until eventually you get to the horizon. Probably can't see what I'm doing. But anyway, the closer they are to you, the bigger they are, and the more of their butt, the more of their underside that they're going to show. I hope that is helpful. That's basically how you do it. Now I want to finish this drawing. Yeah. For a more detailed explanation, yeah, go check out that video I did on the backdrop for Calico Mountain, where I did a real-time, well, it was a time lapse, and showed how I paint the cumulus clouds, cumulus nimbus. Could never pronounce that right. I'm way behind on comments. The Postal Biker asks, curious, in some of your videos, you mentioned that you were a graphic artist. I still am. Was your interest in model railroad inspired by your career, or was your career inspired by model railroading? My career path as a graphic artist was inspired by the same thing that inspired me to model trains originally. And it might sound hokey, but it's Disneyland. If you walk down Main Street, USA, and you're a lover of signage and graphics, things like, especially in the old days, like I am, everything was hand painted. It just blew me away. I was just like, wow, that's amazing. I would like to be able to do that. I still can't paint signs very well, but I can do the graphics. And that was also the first place I ever saw a real steam engine. So they're both kind of interlocked into that. Yeah. But yeah, unfortunately, as a graphic artist, I've had very little opportunity to, until just recently, until the last few years, to do stuff that was train related. But I've done a few things. I've, you know, designed a few heralds for people and did some graphics for an actual steam engine, which turned out really nice. I'm very happy with the way that turned out. Let's see. Paul Olam, I'm driving and voice texting. I feel your pain. It's an idea I think you might enjoy, trading for Gruesome Gulch. Oh, you're trying for Gruesome Gulch. Oh, like the Davy Jones. Yeah, okay, yeah, I remember. The Davy Jones projection in Pirates. Yeah. A mist projection, basically. It could be done, but I think the mist would be a mess. This is similar to the other suggestion I got from someone, which, you know, this is one of these things that is on paper. It sounds like a really good idea because, oh, that would be really cool. It'd be really cool for like an hour to have like mist or a smoke effect, smoke inside, because where does it go? Someone pointed this out actually on my, a commenter on YouTube pointed out on my Old Unfaithful video, because that's done with a vape pipe unit. All of those smoke units are, it's oil based, there's oil in there. And that oil will eventually build up on everything. I don't have a problem here at all with this because I only run it, you know, for a couple of minutes at a time once a month. So it doesn't, you know, I've never had a problem with it building up. But if you had like a mist effect that was going all the time, yeah, it could become a problem. It'd be much better to use a scrim, which is just a sheer piece of nylon, you know, that you project on for something, for a model use. Something that's not in a theme park. Even the theme parks have trouble with the smoke effects. You notice if you ride Big Thunder at Disneyland, half the time when you go up the final hill and the big explosion, the smoke's not working. Indiana Jones, half the time the smoke's not working. So it's because it needs constant maintenance. And that's something when you're building something, and I don't think this is off topic of backdrops, but it kind of, all goes together. When you're building something that you want to enjoy for many years to come, like a model railroad layout, one thing you should factor in from the very beginning is how much work it's going to be to maintain. Because I've got a lot of effects and lights and sounds and all that kind of stuff, animation, things like that. All those things have to be maintained, and I don't have a staff. I don't have I don't have a third shift that comes out in the middle of the night and fixes stuff. I have to do it. If something breaks, I have to fix it. I have to clean all the track. I have to clean the wheels and all the locomotives, all that stuff. So same with all of you guys. You have your layouts. You have to clean. That's why I'm not interested necessarily in the Thunder Mesa layout growing any bigger than it is. I think it's for me. Again, this is just for me. It's just the right size. It's just the amount of pain in the butt maintenance headache that I want. And it's not that bad. I mean, it's 12 years old now, and everything still works. So I must have done it right the first time, most of the time. Not always. You got to learn somehow. But yeah, just to wrap that thought up. Maintenance. How much maintenance are you willing to do on this thing should be a very important factor that you think about when planning your model railroad empire. It's like when I look at photos of John Allen's Gory and Defeated, I just look at that and go, you talk about dust. That looked like an awful lot of track to clean in hard to reach places. Beautiful, masterful work, fantastic. Great photography, but fantastic. Great photography, but I wouldn't want to clean all that track. I wouldn't want to clean all that track. Let's see. Yeah. Manuel Aguero Racing Photo. Hi, Dave. How do you light everything? What kind of lamps do you use in the back of the main scene? Well, that's funky because I was talking earlier. It's funny because I was talking earlier. The lighting is funky tonight because my camera keeps wanting to, because I just happen to be in this weird vortex spot. See, there it went. Just when I move my hands, it causes it to refocus and change the lighting. I've got track lighting all up here, and it's a combination now of CFLs and warm white LED lamps, dimmable. And eventually I'm going to trade out all of the CFLs for warm white LEDs so I can dim all the lights down and bring them all up. On top of that, going around on the tracks is are blue LEDs that illuminate the backdrop. So the combination of the blue LEDs and the warm white lights balance each other out and make it a joy to photograph. That's my secret. It's the balanced lighting. For some people, I've heard people say, that's too blue, your sky's too blue. I go watch The Wizard of Oz. Thunder Mesa is in Technicolor. That's the whole point. This is the Technicolor West. This is not reality. This is a popcorn munching Saturday afternoon Technicolor Western by Howard Hawks or John Ford. That's what this is. So yeah, the colors are a little more saturated than they might be in nature. Yeah, except for the red rocks. I got that color right off the rocks in Sedona, which is also more saturated than you'd find, as they say in England, overly dramatic scenery out here in the West. Let's see. I am way behind. I'm going to have to just run down here. Let's see. Otter Creek and Rio Grande. Did you know the height of the mountains and exactly where they would be before you painted the backdrop? Yes, because most of them are already built. And I went through and I sketched in the height of the mountains. That's a very important point, and I'm glad you brought it up because I forgot. I wrote it down, but I forgot to say it. The height of the scenery to match and mesh with the modeled scenery, like the mountain back here and all that stuff. Yeah, I did plan that ahead of time. And Jim says that cloud sketch will be for sale on eBay later this week. Oh, no, it'll be crumpled up. Let's see. Question. Mitch asks, how am I going to add Mount Baldy behind Small World, as that is where I live in Ontario, California? Just do it. Build Small World on a flat, paint Mount Baldy on the backdrop. Here's a funny story. It's kind of sad, actually. You know, I grew up down there in the 60s and 70s in Costa Mesa, California. And when I was a kid down there, I never knew that there were mountains that close. I never knew Mount Baldy was right there. Sometimes we'd see Saddleback, but you know, it's like because it was so smoggy then that you literally could not see those mountains. Like if you're at Disneyland, you couldn't see those mountains. At my house, you couldn't see them. There was just so much smog. So the air quality is much better now than it used to be, and thank goodness for that. Steamwood Grove asks in all caps, any plans for the look of the Gruesome Gulch locomotive? Yes. There's an upcoming video on Gruesome Gulch #1. I think you'll like it. That's all I'm going to say about that. Pony Horton, I actually have some dirt and rocks from Cascade Peak at Disneyland, and they'll go on my future mine train layout. Cool. You mean from around Cascade Peak? Because Cascade Peak itself was sprayed gunite on chicken wire over wood, over 6x8s. But yeah, that's cool. I've got a few things here from the golden age of Disneyland as well. Let's see. Great turnout tonight on the live stream. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate you guys showing up. Equestria Iron Horse fan, this is a question for me. Are you going to be at the open house on May the 6th? Yes, I am, and so is the Gruesome Gulch layout. I will be there. That's the Mini Festa Fiesta in Riverside, California. I am not at liberty to tell you how to get there because it's at a private residence, but if you know of Gary Beatty and the Puerto Borracho layout, you can message him for directions, and he's very gracious. He's a wonderful host, puts on a great little show that started just, was it 3 or 4 years ago, with just like three layouts. And now I think we've got 11 this year, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. Yes, I'll be there. I'm way behind. Dale Hemingway makes an excellent point. The blue of the sky depends on what part of the world you are standing and the pollution levels of that day. That's very true. One thing we hear from tourists a lot here in Arizona is, oh my gosh, the sky is so blue. Yes, because you're from Los Angeles, where not only is there smog, not as much as there used to be back in my day, but there's a lot of haze. There's just atmospheric haze from the ocean. There's a lot more water in the air, which diffuses the light. So it looks different. You get out to a dry climate like Arizona. Well, like Arizona's supposed to be. It's been raining cats and dogs for, 2 months. A dry climate like Arizona or Utah or New Mexico, the sky looks turquoise, for goodness sake, in some places. So yeah, it's gonna change. It's gonna change the way what the stuff in the air changes the color of the sky and how it looks. Very good point. So that's something to keep in mind for where you're modeling. If you're modeling, say, Colorado, what does the sky look like there? It's not going to look the same as if you're modeling, California or Arizona. Let's see. Sime, I hope I'm saying that right. More great info tonight. Dave, thank you. I've always lived near the coast, and when you're visiting the Southwest, it's always a shock to see stars down to the horizon. Exactly. Because that's the other thing, a lot of light pollution out there in Southern California. Yeah, LA is a desert, but it's next to the ocean, so you get a marine layer in there. That's true. Let's see. Otter Creek and Rio Grande asked me, did you sketch out the backdrop on paper with 3D foreground scenery, or did you just see it? I just drew it on the wall, and I erased a couple of times, but I just drew it. You put the masonite up, and then you put white primer on that, and then I would go in and just sketch where I thought things should go, and sometimes I would hold up pieces of scenery or big chunks of foam that would become pieces of scenery, and knowing how tall I wanted it to be, and yeah, I just sketched it on the wall. You might want to sketch it out beforehand. You might want to do a little mock-up, paint a little. That's a really good idea, actually, is to paint a kind of a practice backdrop, maybe at 1/10 the size of what you actually want to do, so you get a little experience and can do it. And have a direction. Give yourself a roadmap, like the same way I build mock-ups for my structures before I actually build them, just to give yourself a path to follow to get it done. Mike Heath, used to race in Costa Mesa. Motorcycles? Speedway? The Big Banana, Orange County Speedway. Yeah, I used to hear them from my house every night. I can still smell those bikes. The Speedway. Oh. Well, we're getting towards the end of our hour tonight. Any more last minute questions before we wrap this up? We've just got a couple of minutes left. I hope I gave you some good information tonight, at least, or some harebrained opinions of mine about backdrops. Hey, if you want a good time and you want to learn more about things like matching colors and basically color theory for model railroaders, listen to my podcast, the most recent one with Jake Johnson, where we talk about the art of model railroading and go into a lot of detail really get into the weeds on all that stuff. We kind of made a joke about, we should do a book or something on color theory for model railroaders, but yeah, that's a good thing to check out if you're interested in the topic. Let's see. Ryan Gallagher, I think I've got some ideas to try. Good. I'm glad you do. Awesome. Windale Raceway. Yeah, Irwindale Raceway. That's the one. Where the 210 and 60 freeways detonate. Oh God, that brings back memories. Can we please see your layout with the lights on? You're seeing it with the lights on. Did you mean with the lights off? Speedway bikes, the Speedway, Orange County Fairgrounds. Any 460s on your layout? No, they're too big. They won't round the corners. That 440 I'm running tonight, that outside frame 440 is the largest locomotive I can run. Chris Lambert. Dave, last year you showed the location for a haunted house. Any word on that? Yes, there's going to be some news on that later this year. I decided not to put it where I talk about in that video. I did a video on future expansion ideas for Thunder Mesa. Those ideas are still going to happen, but they're going to be different. The haunted house is not going to go back where the Inch facility is. The Inch facility is back there. It's back on. That's where it's going to go. The haunted house, Ravenswood Manor, basically from Disneyland Paris, which looks a lot like the Psycho house, is going to go much closer to the town of Thunder Mesa. It's going to be like right near town. So I have some plans for that. I don't want to give too much away yet because it's going to be fun stuff. There's going to be change. All I'll say is there's going to be some changes to the whole front of the layout here. Let's see. Jay Christensen, did you put passengers in your cars on Gruesome Gulch and Thunder Mesa? And if not, are you planning to do so? Yes, there are passengers in all the passenger cars on Thunder Mesa. Like the coach that's going around right now is full of passengers, the Combine. Gruesome Gulch, no, I haven't put any passengers. I have a whole bunch of them. I just haven't painted them up. They're cheap Chinese figures that I got in bulk off of eBay, and they all need to be repainted because the paint jobs are lousy. And yeah, they're going to go in the coaches for Gruesome Gulch. I'm just trying to figure out how to make them all look scared. like they're all shocked or the big open eyes. They're all terrified. So yeah, there will be peoples in the Gruesome Gulch coaches. Thank you for reminding me of that. Samuel asks, how many layouts have you built in your lifetime and what happened to them? That's going to have to be the last question. That's a good one to end up on. Thanks for that. I would have to think about that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Probably around 10. 10 to 12. But you got to understand, most of them never got very far. A lot of them were started and not finished. I'm much better at finishing things now than I used to be. There's a lot of learning that goes into those early layouts. And I started when I was 14, 15 years old. Like a lot of us do, and then you get interested in girls and cars and sports and other stuff. And then later on you come back to trains. That's usually the way it goes. So yeah, probably, 10 or 12. I would have to go back and look at old photos and stuff to remember what happened to them. Most of them were dismantled. And I used to model in N scale. Almost all of that stuff that I had recently has gone to my son. Before that, I sold a lot of stuff on eBay. All of my HO stuff that I used to have, I sold on eBay a long time ago. The equipment. I still have some of the structures hidden away. I still have a few N-scale structures hidden away from early layouts. They're nothing to write home about. They're not as good as the ones I do now. So, yeah, I'll tell you what happened to them. They became this. Creation is iteration, is one of my favorite aphorisms. You do the same thing over and over again until you get it right, or you get it to the point where you're satisfied with it, it's done to your satisfaction. So, all of those layouts, all those early layouts evolved into what you see behind you. So that's where they all went. And sometimes, literally, there's bits and pieces under here. I never throw anything away. There are pieces in my scrap box that find their way onto the layout, and those are from old early layouts and kits and models. There are pieces of wood underneath the framework and in the benchwork for this that came from earlier layouts. So yeah, all of them they're right here. And that's going to have to do it for tonight. Thank you all so much for tuning in for this live stream from Thunder Mesa Studio. I appreciate each and every one of you. And even though the calendar says it's spring, Jerome still says it's winter. When is it going to end? Here's what's going to happen. We're not going to have a spring. It's going to go directly from winter into summer. Jim knows what I'm talking about. It's like, it's going to be freezing. Like March is like this. It'll be like freezing one day, and the next day it'll be 98 degrees. And that'll be it. And on that note, good night, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be doing another live stream next month in April, probably the third Wednesday. I know this is the fourth Wednesday. I was actually out of the country last week, so we're doing it tonight. And thank you all so much for tuning in. Thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for subscribing and liking and sharing the videos and hitting that notification bell and all that YouTube nonsense that we always say. I appreciate you all. Have a great night and keep moving forward. Adios for now.